You coming? Come on in. Go on, Ned. Come on. Good boy. You are a good boy. There we go. Hello, welcome to Gardener's World, and welcome to a lovely spring day here at Longmeadow and a brand new piece of the garden. This used to be one side of the copse, and I planted it over 30 years ago from hazelnuts that I gathered. I planted some trees in here and underplanted it with all the lovely primroses and bluebells that you get in coppice woodland. But the trees grew very big and they sucked all the moisture from the soil, blocked all the light, and for the last 5 years it really hasn't been very good on any level. But no longer, because I have begun the transformation into making this area into a really beautiful woodland garden. Now, the essence of any woodland garden is shade of some sort, but shade is not a problem. You will find plants that will thrive in almost every variation of the shade theme. Whoa, hang on a minute, that's Ned. Ned, what are you doing? Come on, come here. Okay, good boy. Would you like a little something? Would that make you feel better? Now, please don't bark when we're filming. Right. What I'm going to plant today are two modest plants, but they are charming. They will grow in shade and they spread really easily, but not out of control. So what's not to like? Now, first one is Tiarella. This is Tiarella Spring Symphony. And Tiarella has these tiny white little starbursts of flower carried on long stems and flower from now through till May. And they are happiest with dappled shade that doesn't dry out too much. This is Telema grandiflora. And you can see the foliage is quite similar, but the flowers are rather different because they are borne on long, thin stems, but they're pale primrose yellow, tiny little bells. I love them. They'll last into June, and they are the perfect ground cover woodland plant that also looks really good. They're not just filling a space, they're performing as well. Both these plants come from the damp woodlands or forest of the west of America, so don't stick it in very dry shade. It's gardening convention that plants look better placed in odd numbers than even. If you plant in 3s, 5s, 7s, even 9s, it tends to look more natural than if you do it in 2s or 4s or 6s. So I tend to plant in triangles, in groups of 3. If you want a massed effect of any kind, it's nearly always more economic and more successful to buy lots of small plants than a few really big ones. Small plants establish much more easily, and they're much cheaper. Although I absolutely love the creativity of making a new garden, the thing I love most in the world is actually planting. On a spring day, with the sun shining, the birds are singing, putting plants in the ground, knowing that they're going to grow, that sense of hope and satisfaction all comes together, and it's just as joyous now as it ever has been in my life. Now we're going to visit Mary Keane. Now Mary Keane, over a long period of time, has been one of our best known garden designers and writers, and she's made gardens all over the world, but Joe has been to see her in her own garden at home.
When I think of gardening royalty, Mary Keane is right up there. And what sets her apart is her instinct for planting.
from Grand British Gardens to designs across the world. Mary's work is about atmosphere and emotion, and she designs gardens that are to be loved, lived in, and feel truly alive. But down this path is something even more personal. It's her own sanctuary, and it's not somewhere that she shares very often. So this is a real treat. So Mary, you design gardens for, well, the rich and famous, royalty, some very high-profile clients.
Quite high profile. I'm not allowed to talk about any of them.
I know, we're not going to talk about any of them.
Okay, Joe.
But what I'm interested in is how different it is designing their gardens and designing your own garden.
It's completely different. I like small flowered plants that you see through and that are ephemeral. I'm not doing display, I'm doing atmosphere. And it's for me to potter and wander about in the morning and in the evening and in the middle of the day. It's just a lovely place to be, not a place to look at, not a place to show off.
And the actual layout, did you draw it out on a piece of paper?
No, I didn't. It's two rectangles, like two tennis courts, end on end. And I knew I wanted some flower beds for conventional plants, and then I wanted 2/3, which we're in now, to be wild, with wildflowers all year. And I made this S line of beauty path through it to make the garden seem longer and more mysterious. If you've got a small garden, you want to be able to walk around it and to feel like a sort of adventure.
Oh, this is energising, Mary, I've got to say. What style of planting would you call this border then?
Mixed? Can we call it mixed?
It sounds a bit boring.
It's got lots of stuff in, like snowdrops and hellebores underneath, so it goes on all the time. And then these sort of bursts of colour, like the Henry lily and the agapanthus. Don't ask me, I think it's a headborn hybrid, but it's just a good dark form.
Yeah, I love the orange. Some people don't like orange.
I love orange. I love it.
There really is a lot to see because you're planting in small groups here, like you said, not large brush strokes.
No.
And it's got a sort of wild feel, and the more you look, the more you see. You could stand here for hours and just look at the detail.
A plantswoman at her core, Mary has filled her garden with plants that bring her joy. Not as you might expect in the usual arrangements of 3s or 5s, more like an artist playing with colour on a canvas.
Mary's really got me thinking because I've been reticent to use purple foliage plants in my garden, mainly going for greens. But she inherited that purple berberis, which is on the boundary, and she's picked it up in colours and stems of other plants, like the thalictrum there has got dark stems. We've got the hollyhock with those purple flowers, really deep colours. And over here we've got the foliage of the dahlias and that red sanguisorba in the back there as well. And it's really got me thinking. It adds a lovely depth to the planting colour-wise and a nice rhythm as well. Might have to use it. So has this border got a name?
Well, that border beyond that we've just looked at is wild and high and shrubby, and this one is the transition between wild and high and shrubby not totally working, and a much more gardened, flowery look against the wall. So that's the floweriest, traddest bed.
Catchy names you got there for them. I love the hollyhocks. I love the heights, because a lot of people think, oh, tall plants, you've got to put them at the back of the border, but you're bringing them to the foreground and you're looking through them.
Well, I love the looking through tall plants. That's my aim always, to look through. I love this euphorbia. It's Seguiana.
What is it you love about euphorbias, Mary?
Oh, well, I like their greenness. You like euphorbias too, don't you?
Love them.
I love their leaves. I love the fact that they perform all year.
It's the zinginess, isn't it? And they set off other plants in the garden so well. And the Dianthus carthusianorum.
That is my favourite plant.
Your favourite plant of all time?
I've got a lot of favourite plants, but that is currently my favourite plant. Yeah, okay.
Desert island plants.
Desert island, I'm allowed 8.
No, that's records.
Okay.
No, but it's
The
fabulous.
thing about it is it grows in shade, it grows in gravel, it grows in the border, and it flowers for a long, long time. I mean, it's just a brilliant, brilliant, airy, graceful, lovely plant.
As well as being a great designer, she obviously loves her plants too, does Mary, because look, from the front of the garden, all you see is plants. You've got an apple tree with planting all the way around it, no voids whatsoever. And before I came, I thought, oh, there's going to be some unusual stuff, some rare things. I better gem up a little bit. But actually, what's lovely is they're mainly cottage garden style plants and things that we can all get our hands on in nurseries and garden centres. Things like the pinks, the oregano there. We've got crocosmia here, peonies, iris, fennel, agapanthus. And it's all put together so effortlessly too. This is idyllic, this courtyard. It's beautiful.
Well, I rather love it because it's got a lot of rarities. You said there weren't any rarities in the rest of the garden. This is the rarity corner here.
Well, I can see this is more unusual, it's more exotic.
Yeah, I like a challenge. I've got the fuchsia climbing Lady Boothby,
That's lovely. And
Melianthus, which Joe likes.
I like, well, I think it looks great there.
Yeah,
the
no, I
Melianthus.
think it's lovely, actually.
And what about the one by the door over there?
Oh, that's Begonia albopicta rosea. It'll stay out all summer and then it'll go in the kitchen in the winter.
So of all the gardens that you've created, how does this one rate?
When people ask me what's my favourite garden, I always say mine, of course, and they're quite surprised. But of course, isn't yours your favourite garden?
Most definitely.
Because that's where you can garden, and that's what we want to do. It just is the place where I feel completely at home and myself.
The passion comes across from you so strongly, Mary.
Oh, Joe.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing seeing
Well, it was
your garden.
lovely having you here. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for inviting us.
Come on. Many, many years ago, I visited Mary Keane's previous garden in Berkshire. It was wonderful. And she was the very first person to come and see my garden in London 43 years ago, and she wrote an article about it, and arguably started my career as a garden writer and broadcaster. So it's fascinating to see her garden now. Now I'm just gathering one or two of these scented leaf pelargoniums, which I'm going to take down to the end because it's time to give them a bit of attention. Come on, panty boy. Hot panty boy. The thing about these scented leaf pelargoniums is obviously, as the name suggests, their fragrance. Now this is tomentosum, and you rub the leaf and it releases this strong odour of peppermint. It's really powerful. Now this is a new variety called Torrento, which rather weirdly smells of those little cola sweets. It is slightly weird, I have to confess, but interesting. And there are lots and lots of fragrances, from the slightly weird to the absolutely delicious. But whatever type of pelargonium you have, now is the time to get them ready for spring. This is a much more familiar zonal pelargonium. It comes from South Africa, and rather than these relatively compact plants with big flowers, when you see them growing wild, they can be big shrubs, big woody shrubs, sort of 6 foot tall, with smaller flowers, which are then pruned by fire, but from it they regrow. And I don't necessarily suggest getting a blowtorch to prune this, but prune it you must if you don't want it to get really leggy. These have been in the greenhouse all winter, so they've flowered all winter. However, You've got to be bold and cut them off now, or else you won't have any in the summer. It's exhausted and it needs a rest. So if we take off those flowers and cut back, refresh the compost, water it, feed it, we'll get vigorous new growth, and that will give us a really good display later on in summer. You can cut these really hard, or if you like a little bit of legginess, and I do, then you include that. So what I'm going to do is just cut here, which leaves a bit of stem, and then here, and that can come off there. Now this one, the one that smells of cola bottles, I'm going to be much more ruthless. Take that off. That there. Now, can you see there is new growth right at the base? And that's where I'm going back to. Now that is radical, but because it's a young plant, I'm doing that to really encourage a fresh flush of growth from the base. And finally, this one, Tomentosum, I like the way that it spills down. I don't really want to reduce this at all. All I'm going to do is take off any spent leaves. However, this one here, this zonal pelargonium, needs repotting, and I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to take it out of the pot like this. And what I'm going to do is take off the bottom third. So we're taking off quite a lot of the compost there. I put the crocks back in the bottom, and I've got some fresh compost here. Now this is a wood-based compost, a little bit of garden compost added, and quite a lot of grit. Just look at the roots on that. Great, in you go. And I'm going to wiggle it to work the soil around the roots. And then I'm going to dress that with some grit, which just makes it look better. Give it a drink, but make sure it drains thoroughly. And then feed it liquid seaweed once a week, and you should start to see healthy new growth. And keep feeding it until it starts flowering. I will go through all the pelargoniums, particularly the zonal ones, and set them up for fresh growth and, of course, a really fresh, good display in the summer months. Now, last September, we went to visit Karim Habibi in his nursery in Kent and his incredible collection of heritage apples.
We have 700 varieties of apples. What I'm doing is actually preserving lots of the old varieties. It's important that these are available for people to grow in their gardens because they're not available in shops. And people forget what very nice heirloom varieties taste like. Each apple is like rehearing a song you've not heard for a while, because I'll instantly remember the other times I've tried that apple. So I'm quite passionate to keep these apples going. I'm very glad when people do come to the nursery, try an apple for the first time, and they say, goodness, I never knew apples could taste like this. This is Sweet Society. It's a lovely dessert apple with quite an intense flavour, quite crisp as well. This is Jumbo, one of my favourite cooking apples, and it cooks down to a lovely applesauce very, very easily. This is Captain Kidd, a lovely sweet apple with a pear drops flavour. Caring for all these trees is a huge operation. I'll be producing 7,000 or so new trees a year. I am obsessed with the apples. I'm obsessed with looking after fruit trees and maintaining the collection. It is a sort of labour of love. Right now we're amongst the mother trees, so there's about 1,000 trees here, and every single tree is actually a different variety, and that's essential to have so that I can harvest scionwood. And scionwood is essentially new growth on that tree which I can use for cloning. Just above each leaf stalk there is a bud, and each one of these buds has the potential to produce a new tree. If you look at older growth on a tree, those active buds aren't there, so that's why you can't use older wood and you need new growth. So right now I'm taking the leaves off the scionwood so that it doesn't actually dry out. I'll also take the top off because that is actually too thin to work with. So now that's ready, and the next stage is to graft this onto some rootstock. Right now we're amongst the rootstocks. The rootstock obviously determines the vigor of the tree, and so every apple tree that is in this country is actually made in this way, where it's actually made up of two parts, the rootstock and the scion, which is above that, and you can usually see the graft union where it's actually going to have different bark, it's going to look quite different. So that's the part where you know that any flowers on that top part of the tree will produce, let's say, your Bramleys or your Cox's orange pippins. So this ironwood that I collected from the mother tree, I'm going to graft this onto this rootstock right here using a technique called chip budding. I'm making a shallow cut on the ironwood. The next stage is to make the exact same incision on the rootstock. I'll then tape this up, and that's now done. So that bud that is now on there, that will fuse to the rootstock, and next year, in next season's growth, that will grow into a 1-year maiden, so it might put 5-6 foot of growth on. So every summer I'll be out here chip budding in late July through till August. It's a lot of work. I will probably be spending the best part of 10-12 hours a day both collecting scionwood and chip budding. I'll probably aim to do 500 of these a day. I'll work well into the night some nights with a head torch on, and that's just because there is a shortish period where you have to get quite a lot of work done. Once you grow an old variety like Ashmead's Kernel, for example, it's such an unforgettable variety that you become quite excited and passionate about preserving more and more old varieties, because you realize that these apples are some of the best fruits in the world. You can go back through time and see how important a certain apple was to a certain area. Because that apple is cloned, you can actually taste exactly what people were tasting sort of 200, 300, 400 years ago, and you can't really do that with a lot of other fruits. In the early 90s, when my parents started things here, Britain was actually losing lots of its old orchards. My parents were quite passionate about actually sourcing old material and creating a collection, things like Margil or Pitmarston pineapple, these old varieties which were such lovely apples to actually grow and try yourself. They really wanted, everyone to have that experience. I really wanted to experiment and try and create my own varieties. Eventually, I persuaded my dad to let me have a sort of small nook of the nursery where I actually sort of planted seedling varieties, grafted those out, and eventually I have actually produced some of my own varieties. Unfortunately, my father passed away before trying any of the seedling apples, and one of the first apples, which was an exceptional apple, I've actually now named that variety after my father. I've called it Hamid's Red Pippin. I think he would have been very interested to try that, and it's quite sad he never did. But it's very nice to, every time I see that apple, to sort of think of my dad. Right now we're amongst the maidens in the nursery. To get to the point where your 1-year-old tree is going to start to thrive and produce apples, firstly you want to plant the tree in the winter time and let the tree establish. So that means plant the tree well so the roots are happy, and water the tree quite a lot. So in that very first winter time, whilst it's dormant, you probably want to cut some branches off lower down. So these lower branches in the long term are not going to be very useful. Perhaps if you are going to sort of try and train in espalier or step over, but for a freestanding tree, which generally is what most people plant, you really want a clear trunk lower down so that maintenance is quite easy. And then at the top of the tree, most people actually want quite a sort of three-dimensional crown. So imagine a goblet-shaped tree. And those are where you want your fruit, so that the tree is able to sort of hold itself up whilst carrying heavy fruits. You can essentially choose where you want the crown of the tree to be by cutting the leader off at a certain point, because what happens is if you cut the leader off, all the buds below the certain point where you cut the tree, they're going to compete for apical dominance, which means they're going to try and grow as much as they can. So you end up with a large sort of cluster of branches coming out, and from that you can actually select some that will form a balanced crown of about sort of 4 branches, 5 branches. I would like to think that in a few hundred years' time, people might have a Hamid's red pippin tree in their garden, and they will look up, who was this person? Where did this apple come from? Oh, I live in Kent. Oh, okay, I know where that, where that town is. It's something that I'm very fortunate to be able to do, and I certainly would love it if one day one of my children wants to continue this. I can't think of anything nicer than working alongside one of them, or all of them, if they all want to join in.
So many apples.
Yummy.
When I planted this orchard so many years ago, I carefully hunted out and chose heritage local varieties. I wanted to build up something that could only represent this area. So therefore, of course, I really admire what Karim is doing, and he's doing it so well. It wouldn't it be marvellous if his children carried that on, and his grandchildren. What a fantastic project. Now, it's time to visit one of your gardens. We're going down to Dorset to visit the garden of James Baker.
Hello, I'm James off of The Traitors. Welcome to Weymouth. I do this for a living, gardening, so I thought I'd show you my humble abode. This is like a patio area. Obviously it's a bit early in the year, but your tulips are coming up now. It's constantly experimenting. Daily I might move something around, whatever tickles my fancy. That's part of the fun of gardening, you're never right and you're never wrong. Everyone's a busker, me included. Oh. Structurally, functional down the middle. I have a family. I don't have any please keep off the grass business. I just like to fill the beds with everything, just go wild, and I like to let the periwinkle cascade down a bit like a waterfall. The Hebe just goes wild, and what I love about this, you get the purple, and I've got a climbing rose that comes through, and the pink and purple intertwine. Beautiful. Now this is my pièce de résistance, my favourite bit of the garden, this pear tree. So basically this pear tree was swamped with ivy and it was on its last legs. I had one little pear on it. We replanted that seed and that is growing down there. That scraping sound you hear in the background is my son. Hello, Noah.
Hello.
Rake up the leaves, good man. And I let the kids do what I used to do in my granddad's garden, is just learn on the spot. Watch, learn, experiment, trial and error. My great-granddad was an incredible gardener, lived to 102. So, there's something to be said to be outdoors, breathing in the air. It's good for the soul, gardening. Master and apprentice. I think you're the master there.
In this area, I'm gonna put onions down here, carrots in the front row, radishes, lettuce plants, potentially a cucumber plant running up that.
You've got the job now, it's yours. So this little area, I salvaged what I could from the wreckage of a hedgerow. This bay was put in, and it was a twig when we cut it back, but it's been shaped now. No Edward Scissorhands, but good enough. The little hack I've got is sedum stonecrop. It's good ground cover, it's a great weed suppressor. This came from one clipping I got, which is incredible. They're up there with periwinkle for me for beautiful, almost like forest floor carpet coverage. Here's my bravery award for gardening. This aeonium was left out all year, kind of as an experiment really. It was a success story, so I will be trying that again. I hate to shatter the illusion, it is trial and error, gardening. Gardening adds years to your life and life to your years, and that is like the best quote I think I've ever heard. I want that on a t-shirt. That's my garden. Thank you for watching.
I like the fact that James's son was growing vegetables. Well, it's time that I started to sow some vegetables too. Longmeadow had such a soaking all winter. Now the raised beds make a difference, and actually now they're not too bad, they're ready. The rule of thumb, if you're sowing seeds or indeed planting anything out, is if the soil feels cold to your hand, don't do it. But if it doesn't feel cold, doesn't have to feel warm, it just doesn't feel cold, then you're away and you can get going. And what I'm actually going to put in here is, for me, a bit unusual. This is garlic, and 9 years out of 10, I plant garlic directly into the bed, usually in September, but certainly no later than October. But I couldn't get the bulbs to plant until October, late October, and by then the ground was too wet. So what I did is I planted them up into these plugs. I brought them on in the greenhouse for about the first month, and then they've been outside all winter. Because for garlic to form cloves, rather than just a single bulb, it needs a period of cold weather. If you've planted bulbs and they've rotted in the wet, or if you've just got ground that stays wet all winter, this system of planting the garlic in deep plugs or 3-inch pots and then planting out when the ground is ready, I think can work very well. Now, last August, Carol went to RHS Rosemoor to see their vegetable garden and potager. And of course, I'm sure they produce delicious food, and I'm pretty sure that all of it gets eaten. But it also looks fantastic.
As far as I'm concerned, nothing beats growing your own fruit and veg and eating it. Here, there's so much to inspire you to grow your own. This is a huge space, the sort we might all dream of. Mind you, with a veg garden this big, we'd have to feed the whole street. There are so many ideas here we can take away and use in any size garden, or even without one. There are examples all around of veg, herbs and fruit growing in containers. There are tomatoes, chilies, aubergines, basil, parsley, an array of herbs, and even a glorious apple tree. Traditionally, in larger gardens, fruit and veg are separated from flower borders to be more productive. But that's not practical in smaller spaces. So, if you want to grow a bit of both and have limited space, there's a perfect solution. Well, this is another of Rosemoor's beautiful gardens. This one is called the Potager. There are vegetables galore here, but it has a whole different aesthetic from the vegetable garden. In the vegetable garden, everything's grown in serried ranks. Here, everything's grown because it looks beautiful next to its neighbour. The whole idea is about design, using vegetables ornamentally and making them look utterly beautiful. The overall design in this garden is important. It's based on a circle. There's a circular herb garden in the centre, and around it are arranged 4 symmetrical beds. Although everything's edible, it's all about what plants look like together. So you've got beautiful chard here with these pink stems. But over there, another Swiss chard, but this time with golden stems with the sunlight streaming through it. It's hugely versatile, and what's more, you can eat it right the way through the year. It'll overwinter wonderfully. It's very, very hardy. I love the addition of these tagetes all around the edge of this bed. There's the tall one here, which is one called cinnamon, but the point is it's single, which means it's hugely attractive to pollinating insects. And of course, that's just what you need to pollinate your beans and lots of your other flowering plants. And then for a bit of drama in the background, we've got this amaranth. This is one called Red Army with these very dark stems and dark flowers and seed heads. Amaranth is a wonderful vegetable. It's grown all around the world for its leaves. Here it's grown both to eat but also decoratively. Now everything's set against each other here to give interest in texture and colour, but also there's height from these beans growing up an obelisk in the corner, and next door to them another vertical emphasis, that great big auroch looking gorgeous in seed against the blue sky. And then right in the middle, these two sentinels, these great big plants of bronze fennel, another interesting texture to add to what already exists right the way through the bed, and in fact right the way through the garden. How about this for a novel idea? If you've got a fence separating one bit of the garden from the other, don't just leave it, grow something up it. Grow something like this beautiful plant. This is an ornamental gourd, and it's just using the fence as support. All along these stems, flowers are produced, both male and female, and when the bees have moved the pollen onto the female flowers, they'll turn into fruit. Now on this plant, they're ornamental gourds, so they're not edible, but there are so many members of the cucurbit family that grow in exactly the same way that are utterly delicious. Squash and pumpkins for a start. All they need to grow successfully is loads of sun and lots of water. Beautiful. Not only is this garden packed with beautiful vegetables, but there are so many fruit trees too, and so many good examples of how to grow them. Here's a step-over apple. The whole idea is it makes a really, really low plant, and yet it's extremely productive. Just look at the apples here. And all that happens is, as the apple comes up, two big shoots are trained horizontally along wires. The wires are just a couple of feet off the ground, and it's tied in and keeps making progress all the time. And each time it sends out a side shoot, that's cut back to a couple of buds, which is when it makes these fruiting spurs and eventually these lovely, delicious apples too. But another wonderful way of training apples is this. This is an espalier, and it's a beautiful example of this technique. So here's the central trunk, and this time these branches have been trained out horizontally. These ones first, obviously. The plant has grown up a couple of feet, and then two more are trained out sideways. Again, that happens. Third one, and probably you'd end up with a fourth one you have here. And all the way up, you've got this bountiful crop of apples. So even in a tiny space, or on a flat wall, or in between two parts of the garden, you can produce a plant which gives you loads and loads of fruit. Throughout the veg garden, there are glorious examples of companion planting, as here with this wonderful archway full of fig leaf gourds. Look at those beautiful fruit. But at their feet are growing tagetes, and they are supposed to deter whiteflies and other kinds of aphids. They've got a really strong, pungent smell, and they bring in all sorts of pollinating insects. The potager and the vegetable garden show us all that with a little bit of creativity, we can put vegetables and flowers together to produce something which is just as beautiful as any bed or border.
Now here's another change that we made over the winter. This is the mound, and for the last 6 or 7 years these have been big beds on either side of the path with roses and quite big planting, but the space was awkward, so taken them out, and this has been laid as a terrace. Here you're raised up, I'm looking down on the new woodland garden, which is pleasing, and so I'm very happy with the result. This has proved to be the perfect place to keep houseplants. And they're happy in here for 3 reasons. The first is the light is good. It's bright, but it's not glaring. It's never very direct sunlight. The second reason is that the temperature in here is pretty constant, and houseplants like that, whereas in a modern centrally heated house, the temperature can fluctuate by 20 degrees. And thirdly, the reason why they're happy in here, because they're neglected. And neglect is the secret of the happy houseplant. When I say they thrive on neglect, what I mean is that you can really damage them by too much of anything. Too much watering, too much feeding, too much warmth, too much light is going to do far more damage to houseplants than a bit of benign neglect. I'm going to go through each of these and do what I would do in spring as we enter the growing season. I'm going to start with the cheese plant because this poor thing is not in a good state. Look, it's fallen completely over. It's lost its support, and if I put it on the table for a minute, you can see what's happened. This here has broken away, so the first thing to do is to prune it. Now is the time to prune a cheese plant. It's too big, reduce it in size. If it's damaged, take off the damaged part. By and large, it's actually not at all unhealthy. Can you see me through the leaves? It's looking quite happy. So the first thing I need to do is to support it. Make sure they're strong and make sure they're tied in well. When you're tying up any plant, always use soft twine so it doesn't damage the plant. There we go. If the leaves get at all dusty, just wipe them with a damp cloth. With your fingers, just remove some of the compost, maybe the top inch, and then top it up. So a soil-based compost or a bark-based compost with plenty of drainage. This just gives it a little bit of extra goodness to kick off this fresh growing season. The next thing to do is to give this a good drink. What I have is a very weak solution of seaweed feed, and I'm going to water that in until it's running out of the bottom. Let it be sodden and then let it really drain well. Now this spider plant is moderately happy, and spider plants are one of the few house plants that actually can be a bit wetter than most because they're very forgiving. So if you do overwater them, you're unlikely to kill them. But once a week is plenty. With house plants, you may experience little flies. These are fungus gnats, and they are living off decaying organic matter in the compost. And one of the reasons why it's decaying is because it's too wet. So the quickest way to get rid of it is take off the top layer of compost, replace it with fresh, give it a soak, and then only water it again when it's bone dry. What I'm going to do with this now is give it an immersive soak. Hold it down until it stays under the water. Can you see the bubbles coming up there? It's bubbling like a man who's had Jerusalem artichokes before his bath. It's quite a good way of watering houseplants that have become so dry that the water just seems to bounce off the top. Now, while that's having a soak, I'm going to deal with the Chinese money plant. And what I'm going to do with this is repot it. That's pretty firmly in there. A little trick is to use a cane in the bottom and just push like that. Now you can see that that is essentially pot bound. If you can see more roots than compost, it needs repotting. Now I'm going to put it back in the same pot rather than putting it in a bigger pot. So I'm going to remove some of the existing roots and compost. And I'm just going to use my fingers. I'm just going to scrape away a bit like this, creating room for some fresh compost and therefore fresh roots to grow into. We'll put a little bit of compost in the bottom. Push that down in. Having repotted, I will give this a water and a feed, let it drain thoroughly, and then put it back. Now, your best friend with any houseplant is this, a mister. If you're not sure how much to water or when to water, you can never go wrong by increasing the humidity. So place them somewhere where you can spray them so their leaves are distinctly damp and sometimes running with water without damaging carpets or curtains or cushions. And having watered them, if any has accumulated in the saucer that's beneath them, throw that away. Don't let them sit in the wet. And that will do for most houseplants. Of course, it doesn't apply to cacti or succulents, which are another whole thing altogether. Now, the whole point of houseplants is that they deliver all the year round. But out in the garden, there are some plants that are absolutely of the season and only perform for a few brief, bright weeks, but are really special when they do. And we went down to Cornwall to visit a grower of camellias, which of course are at their best now. And I think you might truly say that he does love a camellia.
I'm described by my missus as a serial obsessive, and my current obsessions are camellias. Really in it deep with camellias. The Italians used to call them perfectas. There's a perfection in the arrangement of the flower that is pretty much unrivaled. My name is Jim Stevens. I've been in professional horticulture all my life. This is my garden in Dobwalls in south east Cornwall, and we've been here for about 35 years now. Camellias give me interest in the garden from late autumn right through to spring, when not much else is happening. Being evergreen shrubs, they're providing greenery through the winter and form a background for everything else that's going on. They're beautiful. Look at that. There are over 30,000 varieties of camellias. There's about 300 species. There are camellias with beautiful foliage, right through to the other extreme where you've got flowers 6 inches diameter in vivid pink, and everything in between. You've got perfume, you've got big growers, you've got small growers. There's got to be a camellia for everybody. I've got a couple of dozen here. When I've shown you them all, I want you to put your hand on your heart and say you don't like any of them. This is Camellia Annette Carroll, which has long been one of my favourites. It always performs really well every year. I love the way it opens from a fairly deep pink bud and then fades, so at any one time you've got a sort of range of different colours across the bush. Well, this is one called Camellia japonica Bob Hope. As good a deep, rich red camellia as you'll get, but a very typical japonica type camellia, so it's a fairly solid presence in the garden. This one has been here probably 12 or 15 years, and I've kept it around about the same size by taking a couple of years growth off every second year. When you read gardening books, they'll often tell you that camellias don't need pruning, but if you don't prune them, they'll grow into small trees and are much too big for a small garden. And you can prune them. They respond extremely well to pruning. So if you're wanting a really good starter camellia, I've got a variety called Debbie. This is a Williamsii camellia. It's a good vigorous grower, has lots and lots of flowers over a long period of time. One of the characteristics of the Williamsiis is that they, generally speaking, drop the flowers before they go brown. One of the reasons that they're so popular. The japonica varieties, which comprise the majority, tend to hold on to the flowers and they go brown on the bush. This one's one called Minato no Akebono, which means harbour at dawn. And this is a Lutruensis hybrid, which means that it's beautifully perfumed. Right beside that, towering above it, is Camellia reticulata Mystique, which is very, very different, a very blousy, pretty pink thing. Camellia reticulata is the prima donna of the camellia world, and this, I guess, is what most people would associate with camellias. This is what they would be thinking of. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. That, to me, is beautiful. At the other extreme, are things like this. This is Camellia lutuensis, which is a species such as you'd find growing in the wild. So the flowers are tiny, they're single flowers. They're quite sweetly perfumed, which the vast majority of camellias are not. And then the third one that I've got here is a variety called Koto no Kaori, which is a hybrid between lutuensis and a japonica variety. And this, to my mind, combines the best of both worlds. You've got the colour, you've got the floriferousness of it, plus you've got the perfume. This is my propagator, and I took this batch of cuttings, it was very late July, early August last year. They've been pretty much undisturbed since then, just watered them occasionally. And it'll be interesting to see whether they've got any roots on them. Ah, look at that, a little root system. Oh, you're looking at a happy man here, terrific. When I take them, in the cuttings that I took, I cut that off right at the base, wounded it slightly. With a very sharp knife, I just pare the bark off just down one side, which is just enough wounding to stimulate rooting a bit, and stuck it in the propagator. So that needs to be potted up now into little individual pots, and lots and lots of new plants. Here we've got another species camellia. This one's one called Transnoquensis, with tiny little white flowers. Very, very strong contrast with this and the Debbie behind it, the typical, what people would think of as camellias. Perhaps wouldn't even recognise this as a camellia at all. But it has a much more natural, relaxed habit of growth, a very thin, twiggy, upright habit of growth that might be much more appropriate to a lot of people's more natural type gardens than the traditional camellia. People who don't like camellias are not amenable to reason, aren't they, for heaven's sake? How could you not like camellias? Doesn't make any sense. Well, it's hard to say this, Jim, but you may notice I don't have a single camellia in this garden because I'm one of those terrible people that has not yet learnt to love them. But maybe it will come to me. But I do love hydrangeas, and I've got some here in the writing garden. You may notice that we made some changes over winter because when we put the doghouse up last summer, we put a path in front of it, and it was a bit narrow. So we widened the path to make a terraced area. Now there is space to put big pots. I've got two, and I'm putting in Hydrangea paniculata. Hydrangeas cope well in light shade, and they need relatively good drainage. And the great thing about paniculata, they can be pruned hard every year. So therefore, you can grow them in a pot without them getting too big. First things first, it needs a crock in the bottom. It's not so much to improve the drainage, but it's to stop the compost falling out the bottom of the pot. I've already mixed up a mixture of grit, plenty of our homemade leaf mould, and the rest is peat-free compost. Right, now that obviously gives lots of room for growth. And because this is a great big pot, I do want it to be dramatic. This is a Hydrangea paniculata Kyushu, and it carries conical white flowers June, July, August. A lot of hydrangeas you think of as being September, coming into their best later in summer and into autumn. Also, the critical thing about them is they flower on new wood. Right, let's take it out the pot. As a rule of thumb, when you're planting anything in a pot, leave at least an inch for watering. Perfect. Now, as always, particularly at this time of year, when you plant anything, water it in. Give it a good soak.
as well as watering it and giving it moisture, it's moving the soil around the roots. And I will water this weekly. Now, what you see will carry no flowers at all, so these stems will be bare. The new growth will carry the flowers. Eventually, what I want is a plant that is about 7 foot tall, festooned with white conical flowers. Now, I've got some jobs you could do this weekend. Buddleia can be pruned now. It flowers on new growth, so everything that is on the plant now will produce no flowers, so you need to cut hard. If you go down to 2 buds from the base of the plant, that's about as low as you need go, or maybe about 2 or 3 foot. But be brave and cut hard. Now is a great time to sow cosmos for a really good late summer display. Fill a seed tray with peat-free compost and carefully sprinkle the seeds so they're evenly placed across it. Cover them over, water them, and the best way to do this is to dip it in a tray of water for about 10 minutes and then put them somewhere warm to germinate, and they should be ready to prick out in a few weeks' time. If you've got hyacinths that you've grown for an indoor display over winter, or any other bulbs that you've grown in containers, you can plant them out into the garden when they've finished flowering. Put the whole thing, untidied up, leaves, stems and all, into the soil, bury them and let them die back naturally, and they will flower next year. I will take these Buddleia cuttings and put them through a shredder, and then that will go onto paths, and that way everything gets recycled. Well, that's it for today. It's been a beautiful spring day here at Longmeadow, and I do hope that you can get out into your garden and enjoy some spring sunshine and just this sense of the world breaking free from winter and coming alive again. I'll see you back here at Longmeadow next time. So until then, bye-bye.